You're listening to the Downshift podcast, where four mates from Melbourne take you trackside for all the action in Formula One, breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you want to support the team, leave us a 5-star review. So let's get into another action-packed episode. It's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Hello and welcome to the Downshift, where three mates today, review the Formula One. And we're coming out of a non-race weekend. So given that we're a quarter of the way through the season, we thought it would be a great opportunity to take a different look at it in regards to the end of term one for school. And so doing a bit of a review of each of the teams and the drivers as to how they're doing so far, and giving them a bit of a grade and an assessment as to what the teachers would give them a report card on. But before we get started, there's some pretty big news at Alpine, although not surprising. Lockie, how would you like to kick us off on what's going on with Alpine?
Well, look, I mean, a little bit of a surprise seeing that Oliver Oakes resigned rather abruptly, I think we'll put, or effective immediately. He was the team principal. Now, there's been a few things floating around as to what was the cause of that. Some sort of news was coming out yesterday and today in relation to his brother being a factor as to what might have caused his imminent and immediate departure from that team. And then Flavio Briatore apparently has assumed all duties in relation to that. So it's interesting that he rolled in late last season, and all of a sudden he was already head stick in the big grand poo bar, as we call it, or whatever it's going to be from there. So then, ironically, next day Jack Doohan gets bumped, and his mate Franco Colapinto, who he always wanted in there, has all of a sudden taken the wheel for the next 5 races. Yeah, sort of a major change from Thursday to now in relation to what's occurred over the weekend.
Yeah, and I guess we can expect some clean racing now with Flavio in charge.
Oh, look, I can't express my frustration and just disbelief in the fact that he's back running the team, which is, look, in the end, that's what he was after, and it's what's come to play. I mean, quite simply, and this is where, if you look at Flavio's history, he's just a cheater. And you know, from that perspective, is broadly from the history, even to the point where this is a man who was given a lifetime ban from the FIA for Formula One. It was only that it was overturned by a French court that he's been able to return. But again, whether or not you believe it or not, the evidence is just damning in regards to Nelson Piquet Jr. coming out and saying that he was instructed by Flavio and the team engineer to crash to give Fernando an advantage in the race. And what beggars belief for me is the fact that Flavio is Jack Doohan's manager. So you've got Flavio, who is meant to be promoting this young driver. He's got no links to management for Franco, but putting Jack on the back seat and bringing Colapinto on.
He's having a bit of a rough start, though, isn't he, to his season? Like he's not doing very well. I think I saw recently there was some reports of repair bills across all the drivers, and yeah, he was at the pointy end of it.
Well, wiping your car out completely will kind of give you a reasonable repair bill out of it.
Yeah, well, I think I was not moved to tears, but feeling terrible for the engineers last season when you saw with Williams, and Colapinto did his debut races with Williams. And if you think back to there, we had 3 DNFs for Colapinto in 2024. 2 of those were some pretty serious crashes, and one during the race in Brazil, and then for the qualifying crash in Las Vegas, where there was massive damage done to that vehicle. Obviously, from the perspective is Doohan probably hasn't done as well as Franco in regards to places. And if you look at it overall, Colapinto has had a higher finishing in a number of the races, but has also had 3 DNFs. Doohan's had 2, but obviously he's only done 7 races so far versus Franco's 9. But again, from this perspective is Doohan is a rookie. And, from that perspective is he's had 7 races just to start to get acclimatized to the racing and the like. And it's just not enough time for a rookie to be able to really cut their teeth.
It's a tough spot, isn't it? Like you've got, Doohan, who hasn't had a lot of success yet, but, like you said, he's just starting out, and they're going to have a hard time. Now they're going to have a big shake-up with Oliver gone and, Flavio coming in, Colapinto coming in, probably still not having a very good car to, get around with. And yeah, look, I guess you got to try something, don't you? I mean, I know Oliver wasn't part of that. Let's try something different. It was something different, but
Wasn't the statement out of the camp, though, that Colapinto only had to go okay in the next 5 races? There wasn't even the performance that he had to get points or anything like that. I heard that all he had to drive was okay, and then they'd stick with him for the rest of the season.
Because what's he got? Only a 5-race deal, is he, at the moment?
Yeah, allegedly he's only in for the next 5.
And look, I think that's more a PR thing than anything else. Is let's just say it's 5 races so that we show that we're considering the 2 drivers and trying to make Alpine look.
We can steady the ship. We've got some confidence in the next 5 races. I mean, 3 of them are in Europe, so that'll suit them perfectly.
Well, I think the ship might be in a flat spin at the moment, Dan, so it might be a bit hard to right that thing at the moment.
But even with that 5-race statement, and this is where it doesn't take us to the midpoint of the season. This takes us to before Silverstone. So when you think about that, is we've still got then 1 race before we go into the summer break. So what are they going to do? I mean, I believe they'll just continue Franco, and they're just saying this to make the team look considered and saying that we're giving all the drivers a fair go at this, but there just doesn't seem to be any strategy or any thinking within Alpine.
Yeah, we're just benching doing it for the time being, but it's not over yet.
Yeah, it beggars belief. You have to wonder. I've got no answers for it at the minute. You just look at it and go, it's just such a weird. But you knew, let's rephrase it. You knew it was going to happen when they signed Colapinto anyway. And Doohan was just on, a ticking time bomb from the moment they signed him, because Flavio wanted him in. That was his whole thing. As soon as he got there, he was like, "No, he will be our driver." And unfortunately, they had a contract with Doohan literally month or a couple of weeks before they signed Colapinto, but his writing was on the wall the moment they signed Colapinto.
And Colapinto brings a lot of money to the team. So the fact that he's the first Argentinian driver for a long time coming into the team, we've got a lot of backing from sponsors and supporters. So Flavio's looking at it from a commercial perspective, saying, hey, this brings a lot of sponsorship dollars in. And so it's a good decision for Alpine as a team commercially. Now, in regards to team-wise, I beg that it doesn't from that perspective. So it questions as to whether or not, and this is where Alpine is setting itself up for being sold to another potential buyer.
Well, so what are they getting? They're getting Colapinto's sponsorship in to pay for Doohan's crashes.
I think it definitely exceeds that, Dan. I think he's covered that and then some. So.
But no, so look, obviously there's going to be a lot more that'll come out over the coming weeks/months in regards to what's happening, especially with Ollie Oakes. Like you've intimated that there are some potential news articles that'll come through. I know there's been some rumor and innuendo being put forward already, so we'll just have to wait and see what the real story is. As to whether or not we get the real story ever, we don't know. So we'll keep an eye on it.
That's the thing. You don't want to throw shade on the guy. So until it actually comes out, we've only just heard, rumors of this and rumors of that. So until it actually, or if it does even come out, at the minute, we're not for sure he's stepped aside as to what the exact reason for that is. It's all speculation at this point in time.
Yeah, well, it actually sounds like Ollie Oakes has actually stepped down, not as a defensive maneuver necessarily, but just as a, I just need to, let's just separate things here and just, not get caught up in. Because if he was still there and if other stuff came out about his brother or whatever's going to happen there and he was still, managing the team, then it'd be a different complex problem altogether.
Yeah, just throw shade on Alpine that they don't need.
Yeah, they need to focus on, Flavio taking the team to glory and Colapinto helping him on that.
And if we go back to that, Christian, then let's start getting into the gradings on how they've gone for the school term, as we'll call it.
Yeah, let's call it the school term. And so we're a quarter of the way in. We're 6 races out of 24 into the season. So we're calling it the end of the school term. And we're going to have a look at the teams and the drivers to see how they performed so far. Dan, why don't we throw it over to you in regards to first team off the ranks in regards to McLaren?
Well, they seem to be doing all right, you'd say, wouldn't you? Like good haul of points for the start of the season in the first 6 races. What have you got here? You got 85.4% of the possible points achievable. So they're doing well. And look, their strength is that they've got both drivers doing well. They're both getting points. They're both contributing, and I think that's showing, and it's working well for them. And mind you, not followed not too badly by Mercedes. They're also the same. Both of them, and particularly for Antonelli as a rookie driver, they're doing well as well.
And if you look at McLaren with the points that they've scored so far, to your point, is it's been pretty even from both Oscar and Lando. Oscar is doing a little bit better in regards to the points so far, and obviously coming off his 3 in a row win, which is a historic moment for McLaren. If we look at the points though so far, I mean they've got 246 points, and if we take that momentum, if they are able to replicate this for the next 18 races, this is actually putting them into a history-making position. If they can maintain this momentum, they could achieve over 900 points for the season, and that it will become the highest ever achieved to date. The record so far being with Red Bull, with both Verstappen and Perez achieving 860 in 2023. So another history-making opportunity for McLaren.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. Maybe wait till the halftime break and see if they've been able to follow that momentum through. They're doing very well for the first quarter, but, there is a full 4 quarters to follow here, Christian. So let's just say at the moment, they're the A grade. They're obviously sitting at the front of the class, which is great, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves at this point. What if they have some crashes? What if they have a blowout? This could very change, and momentum's not necessarily going to go their way the entire season.
Oh, look, you're right, but what if? But if you look at it, they have not put a foot wrong so far. So you're looking at Piastri, who is just the cool, steady hand, doesn't get phased in regards to what's going on. Lando, probably a little bit more emotional in regards to it. And so, we'll see how that goes at the same time. But yeah, again, we're seeing both Oscar and Lando contributing evenly to the points and doing well. Swags, you mentioned Mercedes-Benz. I mean, again, they're doing really well there. They were 4th in the championship last year. Now they're 2nd in the championship. So we've seen an improvement for them. To your point, George and Kimi. George showing a lead driver, taking 2/3 of the points, and Kimi taking 1/3 of the points so far. But we just saw at the last race, Kimi really starting to show his pace through that.
Which you'd sort of expect that at this point too, for George to be doing more than Kimi based on the fact that Kimi's the rookie. So, but the fact that Kimi's actually contributing is probably actually helping them when you look down, let's say further the list at, say, the Racing Bulls and the Red Bulls, and for even Ferrari, that's when you start to see a glaring problem exist.
And George is doing well in a car that's probably not that fast.
But if you look and go, it's consistent. The only thing, if you put Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, Williams, they're probably around the same mark. The difference is the papaya is just a jet at the moment, and nothing can seem to catch it. But the rest of the field is pretty bunched up well together.
And this last week, there's been a lot of talk about the McLaren brake cooling system that they've developed, and a lot of other teams are, initially complaining about it, but probably now sort of going, oh, hang on, how can we do the same? So it'd be curious to see how long it takes these other teams to sort of catch up on that and sort of work out that that's going to be a good contributing factor to tyre performance and overall performance to get that element under control.
Well, it's really quite obvious that they're scratching their heads because they're not quite sure how the hell McLaren is managing this tyre temperatures. Obviously, hence the reason why they've made complaints to the FIA. The FIA has completed a investigation this week and have come out saying all completely above board, completely legit. So that's been passed. As to what information is going to be released on those findings, they're obviously not going to want to share any proprietary type information as to how McLaren are doing it. You're going to have all the other teams keeping a very close eye and trying to get as many close high-definition photographs of the wheels, the brakes, to see how they can replicate what they've got going on there.
Fine line, isn't it, between pushing the legality and pushing the engineering capabilities of what... But it seems like McLaren have just been, when they had the flexi wing, and they've just been a bit more keen to try a few little things to see if they can, I don't know, maybe not be noticed or get away with it, or make the FIA do their job and go, you're gonna give us these guidelines, and fair enough, we're going to go to these guidelines, but you've actually now got to come back and go, well, why isn't it right and wrong? But I mean, all the teams can do the same thing, no doubt. They're all got smart engineers, aero specialists, and a whole lot of people that are, McLaren aren't the only team with smart people.
Well, I was reading something saying that there's a guy that reckons he's figured out how their rear brake drums are actually staying cooler than the rest of them. Don't quote me. So this guy called Martin Buchel believes that it's a phase change material that when it gets to a certain temperature goes from a solid to a liquid and then stops any heat going any further out to the brake drums. So, and then once it cools down again, it can come back to a solid. But I was just reading an article on it before, but yeah, basically it's this material that it heats up, almost turns into a liquid, stops the heat going any further, but still keeps its consistency. And then that's enough to actually stop the drums heating up further, which will then protect the tires further. So don't ask me to actually tell you exactly what it is, but yeah, there was an article, it's this phase change material and how it then stops the heat going against the brake to the tire. And it was quite an interesting article, but they reckon that's a possible reason as to what they've developed and how their rear brakes they're not overheating the tyres.
We'll put a link to the article in the notes here. So for anyone wanting to read into that and get to the technicalities, I'll probably have a link below and we'll be able to pop that in there.
Just to be clear, that wasn't in the Herald Sun, was it?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
So, all right. So we've got McLaren. I think safe to say that I would be giving them an A at the moment in regards to the performance they've had to date. With Mercedes, again, doing well. Probably a B for those guys. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd be right with that. Yep.
Getting on to Red Bull then, and Lockie, you're talking about some teams who need to take a bit of a good hard look in the mirror.
You're talking about Max Bulls?
Well,
say that clearly.
We're not going down there. But that's the thing. You look at that and go, when you've just done the last two teams, there's sort of a more of an even spread between the two drivers. Now, Red Bulls was the first out of the block to swap their driver over for their second car. So Lawson was dropped. Sonoda's come in. Now, Sonoda has actually scored some points. But as you look at it as a whole, Max has got 95% of Red Bull's points for the season so far. Yuki's committed 5%. But comparison to where they were at this point last season to this season, it's 30% less in terms of the points that they had on the board. So it's a large deterioration from where they were, and you can certainly see the frustration showing on their drivers.
Yeah, it's a tough gig. I mean, we say it all the time. It just shows really how good Max is to be doing what he's doing. And I mean, I don't know. It even feels like he's finding it hard himself. But there's talk of new car coming out for Imola, or new components or floor or side wings or something or other, some upgrades that are coming for Red Bull. I mean, they're clearly still doing a bit of work on the car this year to keep Max happy. So interesting to see what comes of it.
Yeah, well, we saw a flaw for Red Bull at the last race in Miami. So with more upgrades, it'll be interesting to see what does happen for it.
Well, but he'll be okay next year when he drives for Mercedes anyway, so it'll be fine.
Who knows where he'll end up? There's so many. So Max has got his choice of teams. I mean, if you're a team principal and Max picks up the phone, I think you'd be hard pressed to say no.
Yeah, I mean, if Max is associated with every team that's in the paddock and there's rumours everywhere, then it's easy just to conceal which one you're actually going for, isn't it?
Pretty sure that Alpine's not getting that call from him, just to let you know.
Yeah, probably who can we rule out? Alpine, Haas, Kick.
So moving on, I mean, look, Red Bull Racing hasn't moved from their position from last year. So they were in third place at the end of the season. Thoughts in regards to how we'd grade the Red Bulls?
C- to a D.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you've got to keep separating Red Bull from Max Verstappen, don't you? Like it's not one in the same.
No, we're only doing the team, not the individuals that make up the team.
You sort of go, if it wasn't for Max, they'd be nowhere. Like that.
If you're grading Max, he's obviously gets an A, but as a team as a whole, it's a C- D.
Yep. So we've seen then Ferrari, and look, Ferrari, who finished second in the into the Constructors' Championship for last year, have now dropped down to fourth place with their let's say their exchange student who's come in, one Mr. Lewis Hamilton. We've seen again a deterioration of the team here by about 43%. So from their performance at the same time last year versus now, not doing really well. We're seeing an even split between the drivers in regards to points. Charles is leading the points with 53 versus Lewis's 41. But as a whole, continue to just make silly decisions.
What I find interesting here is that, like Ferrari were at one point in time were in line for, possibly winning Constructors' Championship. Like they were right there. Again, a few mistakes then hurt them. But just weird because I know Lewis is having troubles because he's changed cars and it's not suiting him yet. But I still would have thought Charles would have been able to do similar to what he'd done last year. Forgetting, sure, McLaren's much faster. I don't think Mercedes is probably much faster than last year, and the Red Bulls are struggling. So, yeah, for a car that hasn't probably changed much from last season, it's a bit surprising.
Well, and that's it. If you look at the way they finished last season, and I think if you go back to one of our first episodes, Christian, the man who's absent today may have even picked Ferrari to be the Constructors' Championship for this year based on their performance from last season.
That's actually still under downshift protest, I think. I think he's gone to the stewards on that one.
Mate, I'll put that on a stone tablet. It's been chiseled in, so it's all good. But yeah, so if you look at the deterioration,
I'll happily put my hand up and say that I made exactly the same prediction because with Ferrari finishing well at the end of last year, they were only 14 points off McLaren for the Constructors' Championship. So I think it was a confident bet that Ferrari was going to do well. But in true Ferrari fashion, and this is where if you're a Ferrari supporter, This is of no surprise to you. They continue to surprise, and I was amazed in regards to how they can make just silly, non-strategic decisions.
Well, and then the rumours fly about how they're going to replace, can't think of his name at the moment, with either Christian Horner or Ollie Oakes are going to go and step in for Fred. I don't know. You just watch some of the rumours flying around. You go, it's sort of fun to watch because it's just some of them are just so ridiculous. You go, I just can't see it happening. But
like reading the new tabloid magazine, watching the stuff that comes out, and you go, "Ooh, look at that!" Ooh.
And then there was a NASCAR driver who had some sort of expert analysis on Antonelli's performance, and I'm like, okay, I'm sure the top end racing drivers know their stuff, but yeah, everyone's got something to say now, or just wants to, put their hat in the ring. As mind you, that's what we're doing. So
that's exactly
what's the
right.
difference?
But at least consistency-wise, are each sort of providing points. So, 40, 55, 45%, whatever it's going to be. But you look at it and go, at least both their drivers are providing assistance towards the team. So, you sort of have to give them about a C minus for the fact that at least both drivers are providing assistance. I don't think it's necessarily all the driver's fault. I think some of this is actually management and the pit wall that's causing some of these issues from some of the stupid decisions that have been made. So Ferrari as a whole, I'm still thinking they're like a C minus.
I'd even give them a D. I think, to your point,
wow.
I think the drivers are C-class drivers at the moment, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. But the team is definitely bringing it down to a D for my mind.
Feeling like a really slow-moving TV series, but I'm hoping that the next few episodes that Lewis is just suddenly going to magically get speed and performance, and they're just going to the heavens will open
wait
up
to the half point of the season
and
leave you on a cliffhanger.
I know it's like that, yeah. And you get, and again, you see all the memes about Ferrari fans and how they have to all the things they have to go through. But look, it'd be good to see Lewis do well there, and I mean Charles too. But yeah, we're all waiting to see what happens there.
Well, Toto's come out and said that he still sees that Lewis has got another championship in him. So, still backing his boy, even being in the other team.
He can't let him go, can he?
He can't. But
he's
they're good mates.
Yeah.
Well, Christian, I think if you look at it, when Huppy were like big fanboys getting so excited when he went to Ferrari, thinking this is it, man, they're going to cream it this season between him and Leclerc. They're going to be out there racing, and that just has not occurred.
Not at all.
I think Dan and I were a little bit more hesitant going, the new car, he may not be as good as that. And you're like, no, this is the pairing that you want. So I think, Dan, we might need to play some footage of that later on and just prove our point that we were...
look, to be fair, my analysis of that was pretty amateurish. So
yeah, but it's true, though. It's working. So
but it's true. So.
All right. So from Ferrari, moving on to fifth place with Williams.
Well, you'd actually say that Williams are doing, I think, as a team, performing better than Ferrari at the moment. Just what they're doing. I mean, they from the get go when it was testing in Bahrain, and Sainz was putting down some good numbers. He was still talking it down, and and everyone's like, yeah, no, you're not. Come on, let's do it. But Albon's doing well. I mean, they haven't got a lot of points to show for it, but they've. I mean, what have you got here? An 8% improvement from last year. I mean, something's going right there, and we're going to talk about later. I think about teams that are focusing on 26, but they're still putting a bit of effort into 25 seasons.
I think as a package, you're not expecting them to be front runners anyway. So for the points that they've got from the mid-range car, they're probably batting above average.
Yeah, for JV, who he's very clearly come out and said we are not even focused on this year in regards to the team. We're focused on essentially 2028. They've said 2026 is we're working on that car now. That is our focus. But in regards to getting podiums and actually being a competitive team, you're talking about 27, 28 in regards to that. But Swags, you talked about it's an 810% improvement on where they were last year. They are already 20 points ahead of where they finished for 2024. So it is just an amazing result for Williams. I think it's showing the start of their journey and where they're heading as a team under the very stable leadership of James Vowles.
the technical expertise of Carlos Sainz.
And that's exactly right. You look at what happened with Australia when Carlos went out, straight into the pits and providing strategic support, calling the weather, being able to talk about what's going on out there. He said that it was going to take him 5 to 6 races just to settle into the car. So we're seeing that. So a grade for Williams. Schwags, what are you putting Williams at?
Look, they'd probably, what do we give Ferrari? Gave them a C or a D, didn't we? I mean, you'd probably be giving, Williams a high C or a low B. I think they're actually doing not bad. I mean, again, you kind of, I probably forget a bit because you really talk about the top 2 or 3 and then it's like the midfield and then it's the bottom. So it's like, as far as the midfield team goes, they're doing well and they're probably going to do well as a midfield team and they'll finish. Oh yeah, maybe they'll finish 4th if they get lucky. They're probably got a bit of work to do, and if Ferrari doesn't get this together. But yeah, look, I think they're doing all right, and they're a very likable team. The whole package, Albon's nice, James Vowles is nice, and you want to see them all do well. There's no, there's just clean racing.
Yeah, I reckon they're B plus. I reckon they've done quite well for the package that they've got, because you're not expecting them to be competing at the top. But I think for the package that they've got and what they've achieved so far, I reckon they're B plus in comparison to what they did last year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. So moving from a B plus to Toyota Gazoo Racing, I mean Haas Racing,
not confirmed yet.
Lucky, we've seen improvement for Haas as well.
Yeah, and I think this is a team again that is really just getting their ducks in a row this season to actually compete next season. So if you look and go, the 2 drivers, Ocon and Behrman, both incredibly capable guys, but just don't have a car that can actually compete at the moment. So I think if you actually put them in a car that compete, you'd see a completely different team, and they could be competing up at 4th or 3rd if they have the right package under them. So I think this year at the moment, you certainly they've improved 30-35% on what they had from the previous time this year. But as I reckon they're 2 guys to watch if they can get the right car under them. Look out because they'll do some good stuff with it.
Yeah, Haas have been doing well. I think in Melbourne they did reasonably well for the conditions and for what they I think they've performed better than what people were expecting of them in previous seasons. Yeah, again, they're probably a team that's just going to go, we're just going to get through 25 and we'll crack on with 26.
Because like Behrman had that power unit failure last weekend, didn't he?
Correct.
Was it Behrman?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, you look and go, they're both racing pretty much cleanly, but they just don't have the package to propel them to where they need to be. I mean, if you put them down a straight and said, right, you go down the straight as fast as you can, and McLaren go down the straight as fast as you can, they might be in the rearview mirror of McLaren every day of the week. They just physically can't compete.
And I can only say, wouldn't Alpine be absolutely kicking themselves at the moment in regards to letting go of Esteban Ocon?
Depends. Flavio doesn't mind.
All right. Well, we're still a fair way away from Alpine, but for Haas, their grade 4 and 1?
B.
Yeah, I'll give them a solid B.
Okay. Excellent. All right, moving on to Aston Martin. So where unbelievably Lance Stroll has scored every single point for Aston Martin so far. So we have seen a deterioration of Aston Martin's performance from last year of about 41%. But Fernando not scoring a single point so far in the season.
Got a little bit unlucky last week, didn't he, at Miami? But yeah, you kind of wonder what they're doing down there, but you know what they're doing down there. They're getting ready for the next 3 years. They're not. They're sort of done. They haven't got the driver. They've got the car. They're investing a lot. They're building up. Their
queue is in the rack over there. Don't worry.
They're looking for the future. Yeah,
yeah.
And then it's been Lawrence has said that publicly too. It's all about the longer term game.
Yeah, because they can't do anything with the car that they've got. What they've got's what they've got, and they've gone, you know what? There's no point funneling more money into this thing. It's just going to roll around as it is right now. They'll make some show and dance about trying to make it a little bit better, but the entire focus and the money and funding is going to next season's car.
So in regards to the schooling, it's almost they're going to repeat the year next year.
Think of all that experience they'll have.
I know.
They'll already know the answers.
And they don't have to buy the textbooks again.
Some of them might still be in their plastic covers. They might not have even opened them yet. So,
So a grade for Aston Martin.
D minus. They're going sort of backwards from where they were. Like people expected them to improve this season, and that's just, they're heading the wrong way.
So moving on to Moving on to the second Red Bull team, so the Racing Bulls, and to your point, Lockie, is we've seen driver changes throughout the Red Bull pack. We've had Liam, who has been dropped down to Racing Bulls, Yuki Tsunoda, who has been brought up to the Red Bulls. He scored 3 points while with the Racing Bulls, and Isaac Hadjar, who's scored 5 points for the Racing Bulls so far. So, Schwags, we've seen probably a poor performance here.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want some valid input on this. It's a bit difficult because, I mean,
Poor performance. That's polite.
Early on when Yuki was when there was the whole turmoil of, Liam at, Red Bull and, Yuki at Racing Bulls, and Yuki was doing better, and there's all that chit chat, and it looked like Racing Bull wasn't doing too bad at the start of the season. But when you look at this, it's not looking great for them. But again, they're just here for the ride, I suppose, at the moment. Like they're going to have a tough gig, aren't they, with Isaac and like 2 rookies, not just And look, Isaac's doing okay, but yeah, you just haven't got any depth in your experience of the team, like to sort of learn anything. But I don't know.
But to be fair, if you look at that team right now and go, Liam Lawson, he's come in, walked in there with this big swagger about him, and you look at him and the other, rookies that have been in there, I'd say he's performed incredibly poorly in terms of what he spoke about and how great he was. He's got this chip on his shoulder. Like we were saying last week, it looks like he's got a list of all the drivers he wants to bump into on the track, and he's got about a third of them knocked off so far. But as a driver, I look at, the guys from, Haas and Williams and all that. I'm going, I would rather have them driving than him at the moment based on what I'm seeing on the track and the results and even the attitude from those drivers as well.
Yeah, I picture Liam as being the tough kid sitting in the back of the room with the penknife.
Back of the bus, throwing apples.
Scratching his name into the desk, just waiting to get outside for a durry. So, and a bit of a rumble in the playground. So,
I wonder what there is to benefit. I know, Red Bull's got 2 teams. So, and I thought, maybe there was once upon a time talk of, technical sharing between the teams, and one team might do something and they can share information and stuff. But I look at that and I'm like, what have they actually got? I mean, obviously there's still money in it, but you would have thought with 2 teams, they'd be doing better than that to sort of, I don't know. Like, yeah.
Well, this is supposed to be the academy where they find out which drivers can be better to promote them to the senior team. When they're supposed to come through the Racing Bulls to then come up to the actual Red Bull.
Didn't really work out so far, did it? I mean, it's sort of fallen that way now that Yuki's back up there, but yeah,
it really needs to be a reset across the Red Bull franchise. And, from that perspective is you hope that Yuki does well. It'll be interesting to see what does happen for the season if Max decides to go to another team. Now, we're hearing that from everyone else but Max at this stage. Max is keeping very tight-lipped and not making any assertions that he's going to be going anywhere else. But if Max was to go to another team, you're going to have Yuki there, then you're going to be questioning who goes into Red Bull. Is it Isaac? Is it Liam? Is it someone else? And so really Red Bull almost needs to have a restart. To your point, Lockie, it is meant to be the academy team. So they need to be working their drivers up through the ranks, up through the Racing Bulls and into the number 1 team. And it's just not happening at the moment. You're seeing both teams doing as poorly as each other at the moment.
Yeah, without Max Verstappen, you've got 2 teams that are top of the bottom teams, effectively.
Another fact you need to consider now, look, he's become a dad, so he's got to worry about paying the mortgage and making sure that those bills will be covered. So he probably doesn't want to jump at the minute. Looking for job security as well, just while he gets the mortgage covered off for a couple of years.
Yeah, look, he's coming in, looking at the newspaper at the end of the day.
He might be a bit skint. We don't know. It's which yacht do I buy this week? It's terrible.
Schwags, I think you make a really good point. Is without Max Verstappen, Red Bull is down the bottom of the pack, and from that perspective,
without Max, heads would be rolling at the top end. Like I'm talking Horner, the other guys,
Marco,
there'd be some high level heads rolling if Max wasn't, holding together.
In disarray.
They would be. I mean, they nearly are anyway. But yeah, I reckon more's gonna come out about all that. There's the talk of
that goes with the D grading that I've just given them for their season so far. So
we're talking about another D grade for Red Bull.
Yeah. How low does it go?
How low does it go?
Wait for the next one. Yeah, we'll let you know how it goes.
All right, so moving on to the next one, being Alpine in 9th position, having scored a total of 7 points so far in the season. Lockie, you're strapped in.
Mate, So, I mean, well, you look at this, speaking of teams that are basket cases. So we've now just put Jack Doohan in detention. We've had our new student, Mr. F. Colo Pinto. If he'd like to stand up the front and tell us a little bit about himself. He's going to strap in and see how he can go for the next, 5 or 6 races and see what damage he can do to the car. But look, speaking of teams that are probably focusing more towards next season than this season, because they're getting nothing out of it at the minute, in my personal opinion, to have, a 57% slide and deterioration from last year to this year from where we are right now. I mean, that's got an F written all over it for team management skills, production values, you name it. It's just the wheels are falling off.
What's interesting here is, like, as we go through and grade these teams, like, we've talked probably in the first maybe 3 to 4 races how the field's so close, all the cars are timing, and they you see they kind of bunch up, and at the back end there's, sure, McLaren's out in front by a reasonably good margin, but in the middle of the pack it seems pretty tight. But then you're looking at this and going, they're not really. Like, yeah, sure, they might be having half decent cars on track, but I mean, obviously you can't get all the points every week, but someone's going to miss out. But
it's 2 to 6 and 7 to 10. That's really the 2 packs. Forget number 1. 2 to 6 and 7 to 10 is really the 2 racing volumes that we're running with.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, Pierre Gasly was pretty proud as punch last year where he retained the seat in the team. I reckon he'd be thinking differently now.
He had a couple of good races, didn't he? Or he had a couple of early stints in races. He was looking promising in a couple of races. Did he get pole, or he was nearly on pole for one, or he was at the top end for one race?
Gasly's a great driver, and I mean, from that perspective, it's really, I think, you're seeing the impact of the team on Gasly. And that's where I say you look at Gasly and Ocon, pretty evenly matched. Now, obviously, they were butting heads last year, and we saw in Monaco where they came to blows, and Esteban decided to try and rocket over his teammate. And while the team has said that's not the reason why he's left, it was a very big contributor to having to create that harmony with the team. They've always been at each other's throats. Ocon was the one who lost out, but I would question, I think it's really Gasly that's lost out of that whole scenario.
Pierre will go to Red Bull next year. Verstappen will be out somewhere else. He'd be a good driver to take into a better
Racing
team.
Bulls or Red Bull?
No, Red Bull. Red Bull proper.
Okay.
Verstappen won't be at Red Bull next year. Like I'd be very surprised if that's the case. Look, we are all assuming that, and there's a lot of chatter about that. But and it doesn't matter where Max goes. He's still going to roll in a whole lot of coin to pay for his mortgage. So it's not going to matter. But he's he could pick any team he
those
likes.
nappies aren't cheap, mate. You got to get they keep piling on.
The cost of living, it's crazy.
Well, there you go, kids. You've heard it from superstar pundit Schwags has made the decision that Max will not be at Red Bull next year. Pierre Gasly will go in. And so if that's the case, that's going to be really interesting. And I think that's a great bold position.
Well, I got it back, and I said Max wasn't going to make the season out at Red Bull, so I've got to back myself.
Not sure we quoted Gasly as stepping in there from the start of the season. I don't remember that quote coming out.
Who else is going to do it?
I don't know, but I don't remember Gasly being the step in for Max if he was leaving.
I'd quite happily give you a bonus point for that, Schwags, if that does happen. So
sign me up.
Don't you go throwing bonus points around.
Just make this stuff up as you go, eh?
So I'm pretty confident what you're going to say, but I'm going to throw it out there. Alpine, their report card.
Fail.
Yeah, look, maybe last week was feeling a bit better, but in light of what's just happened, I think it's probably just confirmed what's actually really going on down there, and it's a mess.
It is a mess, and it's just almost the school building's on fire. Everyone's running around in circles.
And the new principal Flavio's not going to fix it. Like,
I think he lit the match.
Yeah, I think yeah.
He's got the ruler out slapping on his hand, going, "You kids sit down. You kids sit down."
All right, so
the captain goes down with the ship, but they didn't say that the captain actually lit the flyer.
So from an F for Alpine, we go on to the final team who's running last with 6 points in total, all from Nico Hülkenberg, a KickSaber.
With a 340% improvement at 6 points. Like, that's,
It says a lot, doesn't it?
To be fair, though, speaking of teams that are all banking for next season, I think we've got a prime case right here.
Yeah.
So I don't know really how much we need to discuss on these guys, but I mean, it allows us to be able to go on to where the focus is for all the teams. But wrapping up KickSaber, any thoughts in regards to it, or just a quick grade for Saber?
I'll give it a C+. But they'll be doing better next year when they change to who are they changing to? They're changing to Audi.
Audi.
Yeah. Like that.
The same. They
There'll
don't,
be
they
a lot
don't have
of
the package to compete. They're not going to be able to do any better than they are at the moment. And they both, even the drivers both know it. Even if they put their foot down, they can't keep up. End of story.
Yep.
All right, so that gives a good opportunity to have a look at, now that we're getting a quarter of the way into the championship, who actually is or should be focused on 2025 or 2026. If we go through the teams from 1st to 10th, McLaren.
I think McLaren is still firmly working on 25, but I don't think they have to do much more to, like, they probably just need to, like, after last weekend, they finished, 33 seconds before second place. It's like, well, how much further ahead do you have to be before you go, you know what, that's enough, that we can just keep doing this. And maybe when we get to 10 seconds gap, or maybe then we'll go, well, let's do a little bit more, and then we'll, get it back in front, and then we'll just go, we'll just close the book on 25 and just look at 26 now. We'll just keep rolling with what we got. So they don't.
The other question is, were they dialed in fully, and were they running at full pace, or did they still have more in the tank that they could have tuned the engine up further if they needed to? Like, you don't even know.
No, never do.
Yeah. I mean, Oscar was, being able to, he wasn't pushing it at the end. He had Lando was pushing to try and get a bit closer and ended up being about 4 seconds behind. But yeah, George being 30 odd seconds behind, just not even worrying them at this stage. So McLaren, to your point, Schwags, focused on 2025, but really not a lot that they really need to be doing, so they can start to turn their attention to 2026. Mercedes?
I think they're still focused on this year, just trying to extract as much as they can, because I think they would very much like to become second in the Constructors' Championship and knock off Ferrari for that position. And I think they really want to see between the two drivers if they can push George and see what he can get out of it, and then see exactly what Kimi's got as well, because I reckon they would like Kimi to beat George a couple of times just to show him that he's got the pace and he can do it.
I think they want to give me the chance to do better. I mean, he's doing pretty good anyway, but I think they just want to get him a chance to get on the podium, once or twice this season, just to make sure his confidence is there, with the view to 26. You're going to have, let's say, better. They're all aiming for better car, and it just feels like George is just manhandling his way through the car, and it seems like he's struggling a bit with it, because he's giving it. He's pushing hard. He's getting as much as he can get out of it. But I think
rumor has it their power unit's supposed to be ahead of everyone else's for next season. So if that's the case, you really hope that they can both, push in and actually have a fantastic season next season. But I think they're developing next season's car and still tweaking this season's car enough to make the difference that they need.
Yeah, I'd say gold star for Kimi, and I mean, from that perspective, is just keep pushing hard this year to get that, again, cutting your teeth, getting the racecraft together, being able to handle the speed of the cars, and be able to back that up with some podiums as well. So I think that's definitely on the cards for him. So yeah, so focus on 2025 with 2026 in the background, which brings us to third and fourth. So we've got the Red Bull Racing and Ferrari. So focus for these guys.
Ferrari just needs to keep Lewis happy. They just need to do whatever they can do to just get him in a car that he's comfortable with, and work out that whole issue that he's not comfortable with, and make sure that they can carry that forward into 26 with a better car as well.
I think Ferrari's still working on this car, because I think they're a little bit surprised that they're not further up. I think that they thought they'd come into this season and be either beating McLaren or chomping so closely at their heels it's not funny. And I think you'll find that they're standing in the garage at the minute, scratching their head, going, "What the hell? Like, this is not supposed to happen. We were supposed to be."
I think they're just having a cup of tea and discussing it. I don't think they're scratching their heads at all.
Well, they could be doing that too, to be honest.
Well, wait, is the car not going fast enough?
And look, for them, it's a point of pride as well. We're seeing that we're coming to Imola. So this is Enzo and Dino's track. The track is named after the two of them. Ferrari want to come in and actually show some performance and some pace here. You'll see upgrades being brought to Imola. So to your point is that Ferrari still want to be able to do well. I think, while Williams is a little bit behind them, they don't want Williams to get any closer. Because I think that would be a real slap in the face if Williams was actually able to nudge into fourth place and Ferrari to drop behind.
The question is, do they have the speed to actually compete against Mercedes and McLaren for this weekend?
Well, that is the question. I mean, Imola's a interesting track, and we'll talk about that in the next episodes. Yeah, it's a consideration for them. So with that, so we've got Red Bull, who I think really focusing on 2026. To your point, Lockie, is that there's some concerns around whether or not their power unit's even going to be competitive for next year.
Yeah, well, I reckon the Ford, who's advising them on their power unit, because apparently they're making their own first time having a crack at their own engines for next year, feels that both Mercedes and Ferrari are further along in their power unit developments than what Red Bull is at the moment. But you look at, I think they're still trying to improve the 2025 car, one, just to keep Max happy, and two, because they obviously can't figure out why they're that far behind.
I would say Ferrari are still focusing on 2025, Red Bull potentially focusing on 2027.
Well, 2026. Let's give them a 50-50 shot.
I think Red Bull have even thought about the car yet. They're worried about management and drivers and political.
They're losing too many people to other teams.
It just sounds like there's so much stuff. It feels like there's a lot going on at Red Bull that they're just like, what's going on?
So we're seeing Williams in regards to, again, probably an 810% improvement so far this year. So we're seeing Williams actually doing really well. We've talked about how steady the team is. Thoughts in regards to their focus?
They've stated as 26, but they're doing quite well in a 25 car. So they probably do some continue tweaking, get it going better. I mean, they've got to just get both their drivers to finish. It's been a bit unfortunate for them, but if they get both their drivers to finish, they'll probably do much better just with that alone.
I reckon they'd be quietly chuffed as to where they are this season, given that their main focus was to be next year. I think you'll find that they're like, ooh, didn't expect that, and I'm more than happy with their positioning at the moment.
Yeah, I think with the focus, to your point, Schwags, is they are focused on 2026 and beyond. It's let's just let the drivers do what they can with the current car and support them in regards to that.
And they're doing okay with the current car. Like it's not, sure, they're not at the pointy end of points, but they're doing okay.
All right. Quickly jumping through, looking in regards to Haas.
Haas's focus is next year, and we know that because they're getting taken over. So it's just get it through this year and move on.
Yep.
Let the new management take over.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Aston Martin.
Well, we already know they put a line through this year. That's not an issue.
Yeah,
put a line through this year and probably halfway through next year and looking for 28, I think.
Well, you've got Newey, who's bedded down, not allowed to go home. He's focused on the 2026 car. You've got the new wind tunnel. You've got everything. You've got the move to Honda for the power unit. So everything is pointing towards a massive investment.
Yeah, and you put Stroll and Alonso in really good cars and cross your fingers.
Yeah. All right. So 2026 and beyond, Racing Bulls, 2028.
I don't know what
let's just see if they can have their same drivers at the end of the season.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. Is you look at both Racing Bulls and Red Bull, what their driver lineup's going to look like. Well, we've seen that Pierre Gasly's going to go to Red Bull next year.
Yep. You heard it here. You heard it first or third, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently, you can mark that down almost set in stone. Apparently,
absolutely. Yeah, contract signed.
Pending.
Definitely 26 and beyond. I mean, they're still playing around their drivers. They've got no hope for the championship this year. So, and then Sauber again, 2026 and beyond.
Again with a change, nothing.
Yeah. So we're gonna see Sauber. We're gonna see and Cadillac coming in for 2026. So
they're definitely thinking about 26. Yeah, you heard that here first too.
Cadillac focus on 26. Good to know.
26.
All right. So with all that, we've obviously gone and graded the teams. We've seen some great performance from some of the top runners and some really questionable from the mid and lower field. Coming up for the next episode is a review of the Imola. So make sure you tune in for that, and we'll see you on the next lap. And that's the checkered flag for this episode of The Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Tune in next time as we keep pushing flat out to bring you fresh, current and entertaining content. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.